Hey, Marty Friedman. Hey, thanks so much for joining the show today.
It's great to be here, Jason. Nice to meet you.
You too. We're talking because you're coming to two shows in our area, actually. It's going to be at the Ram's Head in Annapolis on February 8th, and then the Tally Ho Theater in Leesburg, Virginia on February 11th. Now, are you going to be playing mostly stuff from the last year's album Drama, like, Dead of Winter, Song for Eternal Child, or does it go all the way back to your first solo stuff?
Oh, we're going way back. We're going to play like a full, comprehensive, the whole thing. Of course, we're going to do a lot of the new drama stuff. But the reason we're playing acoustically proper venues on this tour is because if you've heard the drama album, it's definitely the type of thing that needs really, really nice acoustics to get it done right. And so it's kind of unusual in the sense that the venues themselves are a lot classier than what we are. We're still gonna rip your heads off with the sheer power of what we do, but the complete opposite end of the spectrum is where we're gonna show our romantic side more than we ever have before. So there's a bigger gap, there's a bigger contrast, there's more surprises, there's more, there's just more of what we do in the shows that we're going to be playing on this tour. And so far, it's just been absolutely incredible and just really been a big blast for all of us. We cannot wait to get to my home neighborhood for this.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about your home neighborhood. I love that you're gonna rip our heads off in these intimate settings. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
I love.
the idea came from this because we did a show in a place called the Cotton Club in Tokyo, which is a totally upscale. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely like dignitaries would go to this type of place. I mean, it's
Right.
absolutely gorgeous. For whatever reason, they offered us to do a show there, and we did it there. We did our normal show, and by far, it was the loudest, most rock show they'd ever seen. But they loved it. The crowd loved it, and they kept having us back, and they kept having us do multiple shows there. And I'm like, you know what? There's something that we're doing that can work for a lot of different kinds of venues. And that's where we got the idea for doing it. And I think the reason is it's not necessarily that the aggressive part of the music or the loud part of the music, the hard part of the music. I think the fact is that when we play, when people leave the show, they leave uplifted. They have a very positive energy, something that they can get through whatever stress they're going through. They can fight through the next couple days of work or whatever. I used to like that feeling when I go up, you go to an event or a show or a concert, you don't leave the show thinking, wow, that guy's a good guitar player. After a great show, you leave thinking, I feel great. I'm so glad I went to this. I feel charged up. I have a positive vibe going. It's been stressful lately, but I forgot about the stress for the 2 hours I was at this show. And now I feel like I can face things again. And I feel positive now. And that's something that we've really, really honed in on trying to do with our shows. And, that's why we play all kinds of different venues. We play festivals, we play intimate shows, we've been mid-sized shows, big shows, whatever. But the common thread is that feeling that we want to give everybody when they leave the show.
I love it. Yeah, you shoot us back out into the world all energized and charged up to face the rest of our
Yeah,
life.
that's what it's all about.
I
And I
love it.
personally guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Oh, there, he's guaranteeing it, folks. Well, you mentioned that it's your home area, so I want to ask you about that because we love the local angle. I know you were born in DC in '62, but where exactly did you grow up? Was it like on the outskirts of DC, or were you in DC proper growing up?
I was born in DC, but I grew up in Laurel in PG
Oh,
County.
yeah, of course. Know
Yeah,
it
of course.
well. I'm
You
talking to
know
you
it
from
well.
Frederick, Maryland, so not far at all,
Yeah,
just a couple
not
counties
far
up
at
and
all.
on. I love it.
But
I love.
growing up there, well, I just released an autobiography, Dreaming Japanese,
Yeah.
and of course, my whole upbringing in the Laurel area is outlined in great detail.
Hmm.
And it was a wonderful place to grow up, and I was very fortunate to meet friends there who gave me my first band with really wonderful chemistry. And as I wrote in the book, that's very rare. When you find people that you have a once in a lifetime chemistry, it doesn't happen all the time. And I had found that in Laurel, Maryland, and took years and years and years of a career later to find it again. And you'll see it with my band now, but it's definitely an uncommon thing. And that's where I grew up, though, Laurel. Yeah.
I love it. With my wife and I were just there for they had a big 4th of July show. Did you ever go to it's like a big open field by a lake and they have a stage there. Did you ever hit that when growing up?
I did, but when I lived there, it was always on Main Street.
Okay.
It was on Main Street. There was always stuff going on, a parade,
Yeah.
and all the merchants were doing stuff, and it was just total small town life, maybe population 20, 30,000 or something.
I love it. We
And
just interviewed the Warren Treaty, the duo, and they met and fell in love in Laurel, Maryland at that festival. So that's funny. Awesome. Well, so then how do you get into music though? Did I read you went to a Kiss concert or something, and then you went and learned guitar, or what's the actual backstory?
yeah, I was living in Laurel, and I saw Kiss at the Capitol Center, and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
I went to a store called Rosso Brothers in Laurel the very next day, and just begged my mom to get me a guitar. So she got me $100 guitar, and I took a few lessons there. And my teacher, he was a good teacher, but I wanted to learn how to play rock and roll and punk and fun stuff like that. And he was teaching me all kinds of hippie stuff and theory, and that's not where I was at. I was into the athletic kind of the punk. And back then, Kiss was considered punk. I don't know why, but they
Crazy
were.
to think, right?
Yeah. And so I was into the action,
Yeah,
and so
the
I
aggressive.
learned that on my own. And but my teacher gave me a few good building blocks to start with, and bands in Laurel and the Maryland area, and we branched out into other states and played in New York and Virginia and Delaware and all that, and but all based in Laurel, Maryland.
I love it. So you're familiar with all this whole area of music. And by the way, like you mentioned, folks, this interview is just a teaser. The full thing, you got to pick up the autobiography. Just came out, I guess, this past holiday season, Dreaming Japanese. And we can get I'd like to, maybe hit a couple highlights, but I want to remind everyone the full thing is the book. So you got to read it. All right. So in terms of sort of jumping along on a couple of the highlights for this interview purposes. So then how do you form Cacophony? What in late mid '80s with guitarist Jason Becker? It's like you two twin guitars there. Just yeah. How did that duo come about? A lot of everyone remembers Megadeth, but I want to even predate it real quick and remind everyone about Cacophony.
Right, good. The thing about the book is, of course, a lot of people know about um, Megadeth because they were very popular in
Yeah,
America, and people following my career know of a lot of the things I've done in Japan.
yeah.
But I thought what was important to outline is all of the stuff that led up to those things in my previous bands, like the bands from Laurel, Maryland, and I lived in Hawaii and all over the place in San Francisco. And those indie bands, the struggles that go on within those bands, the suffering and the hellish torment, I find that much more interesting to read about than, oh yeah, we played Madison Square Garden, we played Rock in Rio for a couple 100,000 people. That kind of reads like a resume, and people know all that stuff
That
already.
stuff's well
So
documented already. Yeah.
yeah, so every single thing in the book is what's not documented yet, stuff that's not talked about in interviews. And so with Cacophony, I was going to do a solo album. I was going to do my first solo album. And the president of the record label said, "You got to meet this kid, 16-year-old guitar player. He's super." Like, I don't care about meeting some kid. I'm working on a record here.
Yeah.
And, but then he was the president of the label and I didn't want to piss him off. So, I said, okay, send him over. And he had a demo tape, and I didn't think the demo tape was any good, to be honest. All this is in much more detail in the
Yeah.
book, but didn't like the demo tape. But I met him because I didn't want to piss off the record label guy. Came over to my house, and I just fell in love with the guy. just like a bromance.
Yeah.
He was really good. I could tell he had a lot of potential, but he just hadn't reached much of it yet with his own music. I just, it was just one of those things, man. I fell in love with him. I said, you know what? I want you to work on my solo album. We're going to make a band out of this. So I sacrificed my own solo record that I've been working my tail off on for like 8 months and brought Jason in and we worked on stuff together. And that's how it happened.
I absolutely love it. There you go, folks. Check out Jason and you on the old school cacophony stuff. You got to check it out. All right. Well, and I know you said you don't like to dwell on the Megadeth stuff, but there are some listeners that love all those albums. So even if you don't want to talk about the band or the personnel or anything, just I want to talk about like the artistry of you on the actual guitar on Rust in Peace. So you joined the band in '90, right? You're there from '90 to 2000, I guess. So talk what is that? If you can tell us, like, listen, reach through the radio, like, what is it like getting to when you're playing Hangar 18 or Holy War's Punishment is Due? Like, when you're noodling and needling and learning those, chords for the first time, is there any insight you can, share with the really hardcore thrash metal fans of that love that album, Rust and like, what is, can you describe what it's like playing them chords, man?
All right. Well, if those fans are out there, they're really going to enjoy the book because I outlined all of that stuff like almost on a day-to-day
Yeah.
timetable. I've listed every little detail about what it felt like to do this and what it was like doing that. But to bring it up here, um, the short the short version is a lot of that stuff at that time was all written together with the four members in the band. When I first joined the band, there was maybe two or three songs had been roughly outlined,
Mhm.
and the rest of it had not even been written yet at all. So all of that stuff was written with four of us in the same room, same amount of time working on things together. And I detailed that process in the book, and it's an interesting process.
Yeah.
But we just all knew that, like I was telling you about before about chemistry, we knew that what we were doing was going to be cool. And when we started recording it, it became very obvious that we had something that was very lucky to have. None of us did the same thing. There were two guitar players in the band, but we sounded totally different, which can be good or bad. In our case, we were very lucky that they fit in together like, springs in a watch or something.
Mhm.
And we didn't repeat each other at all. And that worked out nicely. And we knew that we had something. And then when we took it out on the road, people were just like their jaws were dropping because it was not like the previous Megadeth. It wasn't anything like the previous Megadeth.
Right.
Um,
Because
and
they had
I
formed it
remember
like
that.
what, 83 in LA, but then when you joined in 90, that's the period, that 90 to 2000, that's the period that most of us remember. Like that's Megadeth, if you ask me. So it took you joining along with Nick Menza.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So you said everyone's jaws were dropped for Rust in Peace because they had never I've never seen it. Grammy nomination, best metal performance. Actually, you got several because Countdown to Extinction was huge. I think that made it even like number two on the Billboard albums charts. We're talking like mainstream crossing over at this point. Like it's getting huge. Symphony of Destruction, Sweat and Bullets, Skin in My Teeth, all that great stuff. Do you have particular affinity for Countdown to Extinction? Do you think that was some of your best work, or are you more of like a euthanasia or cryptic writings guy?
It's all my best work, man. If I'm playing on it, it's the best I can do. So like whatever year any one of those records was done, if it was done in one year, if I would have done the same thing a year later, it would have been 1 year better.
Nice.
So when you're working on something, especially for people's consumption, you automatically put your best foot forward and you don't release it until you're 1,000% happy with it. And that goes for all those albums you listed. That goes for the album that I just released now, Drama. It goes for the next album that I'm going to release. And then only with the benefit of hindsight can you look back and say, I would have done this differently, or I don't like this as much as I did at the time. But
Right.
I can assure you that at the time, not only myself, but everyone involved thought it was the best thing that we could possibly do,
Yeah.
or else we would have kept working on it. We would have
Sure.
kept going.
Yeah. And then each year you in your own mind, you're and to the public, you keep topping it. That's the whole point. And only in
Right.
hindsight can you maybe sift through it or whatever. All right. Well, I want to get to the point where, obviously, since your autobiography that we're teasing is called Dreaming Japanese, let's go. I want to go into that moment where I guess you leave Megadeth after Risk. That was in '99. So you leave and relocate to Tokyo in 2003 and become a huge household name. All these 800 Japanese TV shows and movies and all kinds of stuff. But take me to that period when you decide to leave the band. I think you wrote in your book, was it anxiety or panic attacks? Like we have a lot of listeners that are going through similar stuff. So reach through here and tell them that you're not alone. I was going through it too, kind of.
Yeah, well, that's just something that I definitely didn't talk about at the time, and
Yeah.
it certainly doesn't paint me in a very good light. But I just like said, I'm writing this memoir, this autobiography. I'm just going to be honest. If I look bad, then I deserve to look bad. It's just easier to write the honest thing that happened
It's your
than
truth,
try to
man.
like
It's your truth.
edit things.
Yeah.
It's hard enough writing a book than to try to like change things around. So I just like spilled everything out. And looking back on it, it's like I really did some things that were not very cool. Um, but they were the only things that I could possibly do. I mean, I had a massive, massive panic attack, which I went into great detail. And I think Rolling Stone magazine actually picked up that um, chapter and released it, so you can read that online possibly.
Oh wow. Okay.
But this was after I quit the band while we were on tour, but I agreed to keep playing until the tour was over. So I was still in the band, I was still playing live, but everybody knew my days were numbered because I'd already said I was quitting. So that was fine, except we had a couple days break, and in that break, I had like the biggest panic attack the doctor at the ER had ever seen.
Really?
He'd never seen a panic attack like this, and I was convinced that there was absolutely no way I could even move out of the hospital, much less play a show. Thought I was. It was just a very, very bad scene, and because of that, I did a lot of things that weren't very nice because I had absolutely no capacity to think about anything other than trying to survive this panic attack.
Yeah.
And so a lot of damage was in my wake, and it sucked for a lot of people, of course, myself too. But what I learned about, I had no experience with panic or anxiety or any of those buzzwords that everybody uses now. None of that. I was just a regular dude, and all of a sudden, thought I was going to die.
Mm.
And so what I learned about that is sometimes you have to keep your psychological game in order. You have to be in touch with your feelings about every little thing, or else things blow up. They become bigger than what they really are, and they mushroom cloud inside yourself and they come out. So the closer you are in touch with your feelings, that thing happens less. But you know, I got over it and everybody survived and did well in my absence.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Everybody goes through stuff, and I know Dave Mustaine went through throat cancer. So everybody has their own journeys, and I'm glad you reunited with the guys for that show at what in Germany at the Wack Open Air Festival that in 2023. So all is well, and you're moving on. Well, yeah. So final seconds. I want to remind folks. It's called Dreaming Japanese, the memoir. We teased it a bunch. Everyone pick it up, but remind us how or tell us how much of a joy it's been to that you've become like you're almost even bigger in Japan than here or equally big.
Yeah, it's a different world over there than here. Here, I'm just cultivating my wonderful fans who've supported me through all the years
Yeah.
and supported my music, even though I've been in Japan for so long. Japan is a completely different situation than here for me, but I love coming to my home country and I love bringing my Japanese band here. and I love letting people feel uplifted when we play. Um, it's an energy, it's a transfer of energy that is a unique kind of energy. It's not just
Yeah.
playing, rocking out and having energy.
Yeah.
This is something that's a very Japanese thing. It's something that I learned from living in Japan for many, many years. When I grew up here, it's like there's the audience and then there's the artist on stage. In Japan, for the most part, it becomes one building and the artist is a part of the audience.
Oh,
And the audience is part of the people on stage. And this is something that's only in Japan. And this is something that my band brings in spades. And I really can't wait to play in Annapolis in Virginia, my home country,
yeah.
my hometown. And my band is so anxious to meet the people from my hometown. And I'm looking
Thanks.
forward to that so much. And so, everybody, please do not miss this show in Annapolis and Leesburg because it's going to be a barn burner over there. And really, really looking forward to seeing you guys there.
I love it. You'll be fusing the Eastern and Western music styles. You up front, all Japanese band behind you. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
So
it's
yes,
not like that though, dude. It's not behind me. They're in front.
with you.
My band is gonna outshine me. They're gonna outshine me, I promise you. You might go to the show because you know me or whatever, but you're gonna walk away from that show. That band, the guys in the band, the girls playing bass, you're just gonna remember them and you're gonna forget about little old Marty Friedman.
We'll never forget about Marty
That's a
Friedman.
quote. That's a quote, brother.
I love it. February 8th, Rams Head Annapolis. February 11th, Tally Ho in Leesburg. You don't want to miss it. Marty, thank you so much. It's an honor.
Thank you, Jason. It's been great talking to you, brother.
All right. See you, man.